The Monday, August 19, 2024 special meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 3:30 p.m. For the purpose of this meeting, there is a quorum of the council present. Invocation. Mr. Gene Anderson will deliver the invocation and will do the pledge following the invocation. Please rise.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for each and every blessing that you give us each day. We thank you for your watch care. We thank you for your divine intervention. And we just pray, Father, that we would conduct ourselves in a way that's pleasing in your sight, that you would bless this nation with righteousness and godly leaders. And we put our trust in you, Father, before the sons of men. We do pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits a council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city council, council members, the city, or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for the Citizens Forum. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on the agenda. The public forum is now open. If there is anyone who wishes to address the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Tommy Hain, 3095 Abbott here in Paris. I'm here on behalf of the COLA for the retirees, and I'd like for all them that are here to stand and be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? The Citizens Forum is now closed. Item number 4, discuss and provide direction of the fiscal year 24-25 budget for the city of Paris, Texas. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, sir, I do. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This is our first of 2 scheduled budget workshops for fiscal year 24-25. And the objectives that at least I've listed for the meeting is we want to review the police salary increase at various levels with regard to comparison cities. Number 2, we will review of the policy, our police salary increase and retiree COLA and updated service credits for current employees, and then anything involving both of those two or in between. And then also questions that you may have. As you see, we have department heads and staff here to answer any questions that you might have. First and foremost, we will go over a police pay comparison. We've taken, there's 13 cities or 13 agencies that are listed in this list, from Denison PD on down to Nacogdoches PD. These are comparison cities that we use when comparing ourselves with other cities, not just police departments. And you notice the Paris PD is highlighted in yellow. $56,000 is our current starting salary. The average of all of these current starting salaries is $57,852. So you see we're currently below average. We are also looking at PJC and the local ISD police departments, as they and Chief could speak better to this point than myself, but it seems that these are our competitors as far as when officers do leave, they tend to go to these agencies. And you see the annual salaries, and then also what's important to notice is they work an average of less than 190 days work days, which is considerably less than our employees do. So that contributes to the factor for rates and wages. Starting salary, if the email I sent out to everyone, I believe it's option A. If we bump the starting salary up to $66,000, this is what the average is $57,000, not including Paris PD. So out of the 13 agencies, Paris moves up to number 3 behind Denison and Greenville. And if we were to jump to 68,000, Paris PD jumps up right to number 2 behind Denison. And same thing, if we were to move the starting salary point to 70,000, we are just inches behind Denison PD at 70,000, and they're at 70,350. Of course, these are numbers that they currently have. Not sure what changes, if any, they will make in October. So again, if you go back to 66, we are already the highest out of our comparison cities minus Denison and Greenville, and those two cities are really more metroplex cities than our comparison cities. Next, well, before we go into this, if you look at, 66, 68, or 70, in the current budget Grayson put together, there are no salary positions budgeted. In other words, if it's not filled, it's just not budgeted for. So what Finance Director Gene Anderson has worked with, and we'll see the numbers here, we'll take the police salary increase along with the retiree COLA and updated service credits, and how can both projects or both objectives be reached? And we look at 70,000, 68, and 66,000 levels. And then if you look at the left-hand column, and we'll start with 70,000, that's including 33 officers being budgeted, and then later 40 officers being budgeted. And Gene, if you wouldn't mind, if you could take this portion, and we'll start with the 70,000 and work our way down.
Okay, in the left-hand column there, the budget we're looking at and discussing is the 2024-25, which is the one we would be adopting in September. In the far left-hand corner is leaving the TMRS rate where it would be come January at 5.7%. The right-hand column next to it is the 11.51% TMRS rate, which would be the rate required in order to grant the COLA and the updated service credit. And what I tried to show there, the budgeted expenses, the budgeted revenue, and where we came out, revenues versus expenses. And I also assumed in this calculation that we were going to set the rate at the de minimis rate, which is a rate that allows the city to bring in $500,000 of new revenue. As you can see, when the first year we're only proposing budgeting for 33 officers. I've talked to the chief, I've talked to the HR director, and they think 7 or so is about as many as we could probably get hired the first year. So I went with that approach. When we get over to the right-hand 2 columns, that would be the 2025-26 budget, and at that point, the number of officers budgeted for is 40, which is the total staffing that they're allowed under the ordinance. But as you can see there, under in the second from the left column, even with 33 officers with the TMRS rate set at de minimis, we'd be running a shortfall that year, $495,000, with officers' pay being at $70,000. If you move on over straight across from that and look in the 25-26, when we're up to 40 officers, the deficit under the TMRS plan at 11.51% is $634,000. It would actually take another year to possibly make this scenario work, a third year at de minimis, and I didn't put that column in there because it's basically going to be the same as the second column, the 25-26 column. If we raised another $500,000 that year, we would be $134,000 still short of having reoccurring revenues to match reoccurring expenses. We would just have to either get other increased revenues or find some place in the budget to reduce, to make up for that. But one way or the other, we would need to find that $134,000. If you move down to the middle section there, that's at the $68,000 setup. Again, looking at the second column from the left, which allows for the COLA and the updated service credit. In that year, we run a deficit of $419,842. In the net year after that, 25-26, it would be $541,000, $844. In this scenario, we would also have to look at doing a de minimis rate for a third year. And what you would happen after the third year, when you've done those three increases, we would still need to either cut expenses or add some other revenue in the amount of $41,844 to have reoccurring revenues and reoccurring expenses come up to the same. The bottom section there, bottom third, is at the $66,000 range. You can see the first year in the second from the left column, we'd run a deficit of $342,740. In the 25-26 budget, that deficit would be $187,811. So the advantages of this lowest section is it doesn't require 3 years of de minimis tax rate increases. It only requires 2. It would only require 2. And as far as how we would get from where we are now to where we want to be, we're going to have to supplement the shortfall through reserves that we have. At $66,000, we would have to utilize $531,551 of reserves. Under the $68,000 program or option, it'd be $1,461,686 supplement, and at $70,000, it'd be $1,629,892. But if you want to give the large salary increase to the officers, which I think we all want to do, and the COLA updated service credit, by far the most economical approach to it would be to try and see if at $66,000 we could recruit the officers and fill our ranks with that. That would put us roughly $10,000 ahead of everybody else. If that didn't work in the first year, if we didn't add 7 or so officers, we could always go back and up it to a higher level if we needed to. That puts the least amount of strain on the city from a reserve standpoint, the least amount of strain on the tax-paying public who are going to have to bear, the tax increase to make it possible. That's not a decision the staff can make. That's a policy decision that the council needs to make. And all I was trying to do here is that if you want to do it, here are 3 different ways you can get there, depending on to what extent you want to pay the police officers. As Rob pointed out, the budget that you have on your desk there in front of you, the only positions that were budgeted there were positions we already had filled. Okay, none of the vacancies were budgeted. So we're having to do 2 things here. We're having to catch up in budgeting the positions because we think we're going to fill them by raising the pay rate. So we've got to cover that, and then we've also got to cover the increase in the TMRS rate. I think it's doable. I think, again, the best option of doing it is setting the officer pay at 66, letting us grow a couple of years at the de minimis rate, And then that third year, we wouldn't have to set it at de minimis anymore. We could go back to something, either the voter approval rate and actually less than the voter approval rate that third year, because we've gotten our reoccurring revenues up to that point. So it costs us the least amount of reserves to be used to get us through that transition period. Overall, I think it's perhaps the wisest choice for us. But again, it depends on what the council wants to do, particularly on police pay, what it thinks it needs to do. And that, again, I'm not suggesting anything other than, these are the numbers. Y'all tell us what you want, and we'll go from there.
Mr. Vine, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think Gene explained it very well, and again, we're here to provide information. This is your decision to make. But we think in order for you to be able to make the best decision, you need all of the information, good, bad, and ugly, and we're sharing as much as we have with you, not just now, but for the future. Tax rate, if we did 66, you would have to have 2 years of the de minimis rate, the third of which you could go back to the voter approval rate or lower. I think one of the biggest considerations is the fact that with the budget the way it is now, there are no positions budgeted. So if our goal is to fill vacancies with this salary increase, and that we think it will work, and we think it will, then where does the money come from? We're either budget for it or we rob Peter to pay Paul later when we get officers. So I think this particular plan that Gene has come up with, the numbers work. It also allows for 7 new officers to be hired. You basically accomplish 3 big things. You can hire 7 officers built into the budget. There is a significant pay raise, and then also we're able to accomplish the retiree COLA and updated service credits for all current employees.
Well, then I want to go ahead and open up the floor for discussion for council and see kind of where people lie on this topic.
Gene, you said something about going into the reserves. How risky is that?
Well,
Depending, just say if we went with I'm just throwing this out here. I'm not saying I'm in favor of this, but just say if we went with the 66,000, and I know that's the least hit on the reserves, but how risky is it going into our reserves?
that is pretty low risk. We have that. Of course, we have to maintain that 4-month reserve, we're required under policy to do that. But over every 3 or 4 years, we accumulate some excess over that. One of the things that's in this budget is $1,376,000 of capital expenditures, and that is coming from excess reserve that we built up, and that's what we do when we build it up. We don't want to just keep money in the bank in excess of what we need, but we budget and buy capital items, vehicles, equipment, that type of thing that we can't normally fund out of our O&M budget, our operating budget. A few years ago, we cleaned out a ton of ditches, to help drainage situation. When we had an accumulation, we did that. But that $531,000 is pretty low risk. Both the other 2 options essentially triple that, about $500,000. So it's more risky. It doesn't make us dip into our 4-month reserve. So from that standpoint, it's still doable. If it went into that 4-month reserve, I'd have to say I don't recommend that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
And on your slides, if you look, there are 2 revenues that were estimated rather conservatively that Gene was able to go through and find. That one was the EMS revenue and the other one was the interest. They were conservatively estimated, so Gene was able to bring them up to a more, appropriate,
Realistic
number.
That's what I'd call it.
Just to add in the conversation, I know within this last week, we've had quite a few meetings on this discussion, and we've been wanting to find a way to get to a resolution on this item. Originally, I was wanting to go all the way in to the 70,000. I said, let's pull that Band-Aid off and let's just go ahead and get it done. But I know we had asked, Councilmember Norman and I had asked specifically to see, hey, where do we stand regionally in comparison? And then seeing where we lie within the 66, 68, 70 ballpark range, seeing that we're at 2 to 3, generally speaking, within each option. First, option 166 would be at third place. I believe on option 2 and option 3, which would be the 68 and 70 respectively, we'd be in second place. I think either way we win. I believe that we get off with a good start. I do think that we can start off, and this is just my opinion, how I feel about this, to the proverbial kill two birds with one stone type of option here, is to go with 66,000. See how that goes for a year. Let's see how that recruitment goes, and let's see how we gain speed with that. If we are able to be successful and actually yield a good product, that's beneficial to us. And then we also get a chance to go ahead and not have so much of a risk on that general fund reserve. We get a chance to go ahead and tackle the COLA initiative also, which year after year, I know it's always ingrained in my mind, being on council now for 4 years, seeing Mr. Shank come up and defend the position of the COLA. And so I totally understand that. And I want to say just personally, if we can accomplish both, I would be a huge fan of that option. But also, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, 66 does not work out very well and it doesn't yield a good product. We don't get as much of a recruitment initiative started on that. We don't see the fish biting on that. And at that point, we can at least still go up to the 68 and try that, correct?
Yes.
We would still be in a, obviously a little bit riskier of a position, but still safe within that reason, correct?
Yes, I mean, it's going to cost us more of a supplement when we go to 68, but it's still within the comfort zone of doing it. It doesn't dip into our required reserve at that point.
Okay.
Would that be in
Originally,
a third year of the de minimis rate? I'm sorry. I just want
Yes.
to get
Yeah, it would
clarification.
require 3 years at de minimis as opposed to 2 that the 66 requires. Because
Gotcha.
once you get past the $66,000 approach, once you get past that second year, the rate can drop down,
yes.
Not just down to voter approval, but even below voter approval, because, voter approval, the difference in de minimis and voter approval is about $250,000 currently. I mean, that changes over time, but that's where in the range that it is now. So,
That's been my thought process thus far in reviewing the numbers. Now, I don't know where everyone else lies on this. Originally, I was all the way at the 70 mark. I mean, I was saying, hey, let's just peel this thing off. But then now going back and realizing that we didn't have those 6 to 8 positions open and budgeted for after putting that budget in, and then seeing what we have left on the table, I feel like personally that would be my safe bet that I would feel comfortable with.
So help me to understand, we need the de minimis tax rate to accomplish the COLA? Is that,
yes.
okay? I don't know what the average household income is, but, or value, how much of a hit, do you know how much of a hit that would be to the average household per year?
Give me a second. The average homestead taxable value is $148,000, so I'm going to use that.
Okay.
And what I'll do, I'll take the difference between the de minimis rate and the voter approval rate, and multiply that times that value, because what's in the proposed budget revenue-wise is the voter approval rate. Okay, it's already at that, so. Okay, on that average homestead value, it would just be $13.62 different between the de minimis and the voter approval rate.
So $13 a year raise on,
Yeah.
on
The de minimis rate, if you took it as a whole, would bring in $500,000. The voter approval rate brings in half that much already. So bumping it all the way up to the de minimis rate just brings in another 250 spread out over every taxable unit in the city. So
Yeah, so it's a
not a
minimal,
big jump.
minimal raise. Because, you know, the truth is, we're up here having to make this decision, and you have retirees, you know, we hear their point, but then you have citizens that didn't retire from the cities that saying, I don't want to pay for it. So, you know, we have to make that decision. So I just wanted to know what type of hit. And, you know, looking at this, to the mayor's point, looking at this 66,000, it is a raise, and I think it's showing like number 3, but cities our size, it's really number 1. It really puts us at number 1 for a city our size. So I don't know. I don't know if the chief think that's enough of a draw to pull people, because then you have to add in the fact that I think Rob gave the point that they work a lot less hours.
The ISDs, yes.
Yes, so you have to factor that in as well. So I don't know. It's tough decision.
Chief Salter, can you give us a little bit of your thought of between 66, 68, and 70,000?
So whenever the discussion of police pay comes up, we always end up with a pay comparison of other agencies, and it kind of gets us off track of what the issue is. The issue is retention and recruitment. Our officers in Paris can go to the Dallas Metroplex and make $30,000 more a year. With their experience, they can leave here. They don't leave here because this is home for them. Our recruitment is pretty stable because we recruit from citizens of Paris, Lamar County. We're losing our officers to Lamar County Sheriff's Office. It's retention is what's hurting us. We're losing officers from 1 to 5 years. Nearly 99% of every law enforcement officer in Lamar County was trained by Paris Police Department. We're the only agency that puts officers through training, pays for their training to the tune of about $20,000 to $25,000 we have into these officers by the time they make it out of their field training. And then I've got 4 ISDs, a college, and a Lamar County Sheriff's Office recruiting our officers. So we're losing our officers from 1 to 5 years from our local agencies. Right now, with the pay raise that the county's got, there used to be a good pay gap between Paris PD and Lamar County, which is our next closest contender. There was a decent pay gap, and that kept officers at Paris PD. Right now, Lamar County, if you factor in their base pay and their take-home cars that they didn't have before, they're making more money than Paris police officers. They're doing half the work. Their call load's less. The type of call they take is much less. And then if you look at the ISDs, now the ISDs, they'll have an opening. They'll either recruit from us or they'll recruit from the county, but the ultimate loss ends up in the city because we're the one training the officers. So these other agencies, it's nice to see these pays and where we stand, but until we have an effective pay gap between us and Lamar County, we will continue to lose officers. Recruiting them is stable. We'll give a test. We'll have 10 or 15 people show up. We generally hire 2 to 3 off that list. We just lost, last week, we lost another officer that we put through the academy, we put him through FTO, and he didn't make his training in the last couple of weeks. He didn't make his training. There's a huge liability in putting somebody with a badge and a gun on the street after all of that, and then risking liability to the city. We won't put an officer that we think is not going to be able to cut it out there on the street, so we take that loss. But our bigger problem is retention, not recruitment. And as far as the dollar figures, that's the man right there. So I trust him, but I want y'all to understand the problem is retention, and the competition is local. It's not these other departments in the Metroplex. Our guys could go to the Metroplex and make more money. They want to stay home. So I'll take any questions. I just wanted to make that clear that y'all understand that.
I'll say this, I appreciate you being honest with us on that because, I think it's important for folks to know and our citizens to know that, look, we're not just looking for a body to fill this position. If they're not ready and if they're not capable or if they're going to be a liability, right, to the city or to do some harm potentially or whatever it could be, right? If they're not ready, if they're not fully developed in the process, then you're not going to permit that individual to go forward.
Right.
And so I do appreciate that because then that mitigates that liability on the city and on human life in general or procedural operations. So I do appreciate that.
Okay.
So you said retention, so what is your expert opinion on what we can do to help retain?
We need to establish a pay gap, an effective pay gap between us and Lamar County Sheriff's Department or the next closest agency to us that create, and not only create it, but hold it. Because right now we're playing leapfrog. Since I got here, we're playing leapfrog with the county. We'll raise our pay at the $2,000, $3,000 above them. They'll go over there and get their pay $2,000 to $3,000 above us, and then we're leapfrogging each other. What I would recommend is what Greenville does is establish a pay gap, an effective pay gap that will retain our guys. It makes it more difficult for them to leave. And then have an ordinance or resolution to hold that pay gap, and that takes the justification, the incentive for the county to keep chasing us away, because now their commissioners court know, okay, you're using the police officer, the Paris Police Department's base pay as a reason for them to raise their pay. So, but if you take that away from them, and if you take that argument away from them, then I think it'll stabilize the pay between us and the county, and we can retain that gap.
Do you think that 66, 68, or 70 would fit the bill for that?
I think 68 to 70 would. Right now, if 66, that puts us 3,000 above them. And I think with the money they're getting from the state, they can leapfrog right ahead of us again.
Gotcha.
And if when they're ahead of us or even close to us or equal to us, we're losing young officers because the job for the county is not the same as the job for the city. The type of work, the number of calls, the danger is not the same. And they can go to another agency, make the same, if not more pay, or the school districts and work 180 days a year versus all year round. It's the incentive's there. And we've lost officers. We lose most of them to the county, but we have lost them to the school districts and to the college as well.
So this chart is showing that on October the 1st, Lamar County would be basically making 57, and we're asking, or some, they're, I guess.
It doesn't include their take-home. Their take-home car jumps 6,000. If you factor in we don't have take-home cars, they have take-home cars. That's another $6,000 if you go on under national average of $500 a month for a take-home car. So they factor that in. So when we look at it, that's what we have to factor in.
Is that something that we've looked into as a department? I mean, I know there are pros and cons to it, but just out of curiosity, is that something that we've looked into in the past?
We've looked into lease vehicles. It doesn't save us. It doesn't save us money. It would be almost impossible for us to. Right now, we run about 13 to 14 cars that we refresh. We try to buy 3 to 4 cars every year. And if we had a car for every officer, the maintenance and the fuel would be pretty big increase in cost. Any other questions?
So do you think it would be more equitable and we could recruit more at 68?
Think
I mean,
would- yeah.
we shot for 70 and Gene may be shooting us down. But would 68 be more?
It would help us retain more. I think our recruitment may bump up a little bit if we get the 68. We may be able to recruit some, like, people are always recruiting from us. We might be able to recruit from some other agencies and get some certified officers.
But the retention is
So
what we're
retention is our biggest problem.
focused on.
It's good to know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Gene regarding this matter?
The retiree COLA package that we're talking about, it's for the full, is it for the 1.1 million? The full asking of the amount that they were trying to achieve for the full funding?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I'm
What's the
getting all-
what's the total price tag of the retiree COLA package?
About 1.1 million,
Okay.
because you can't give the COLA without giving the updated service credit. That's the way the statute's written. You can do the opposite. You can do the updated service credit without the COLA, but we didn't even consider that.
Thanks.
So we're not taking any votes or anything, any decisions tonight, just direction, correct? Correct.
Yeah. We kind of need the direction, so any changes, so we can go in and put in the numbers.
Sure.
Because when we have our meeting on the 26th, 2 days after that, 3 days, on Thursday, I have to have a notice in the paper, given the amounts and what the tax rate would be and all of that stuff, so
Yes, sir.
we need,
So do we feel fairly comfortable? Where are we as a council at? What do you all feel? And let's just go ahead and start with the 70. I mean, where are we at with the 70,000? What say you all?
Well, I vote for the 70, of course. I think that's going to get us there, keep us there. The police department has been the department to suffer. I know we talk about borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. Well, we've taken from that department because we have not given the raises. And now it's time to take care of that department. And if we have to rob from another department. I vote for the 70.
Please, sir.
Well, I don't have a problem with the 70, 68 or 70, because we cannot forget the fact that the police officers protect our city. And there's been several incidents where we could not send police officers in because we did not have enough police officers, or we couldn't prevent the situation because we don't have the officers to prevent the situation. So whatever we need to do to retain, recruit, I think we need to do it. I'm willing to take that risk to make that happen.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll state this. Again, I would love to be able to help both sides on this matter with the COLA and the PD. So I'm good with a good compromise of a 68. I know it's silly as to go 68 to 70, but I like 70. I love 70, but I know that would leave a lot of people behind too. And I think that there's a lot of folks in here that have served, and man, they come year after year asking for this just to be able to catch up on that COLA. And I do think that is it USC? Updated service credit.
credit,
Okay.
yes.
I think that also will end up being a good aid. That's huge. I mean, if this thing didn't go through, I think that USC would help us with all departments in general and recruitment in that, seeing that we have such a shortage in certain departments. I think that will be a good indicator to be able to recruit and help and find those needs. So personally, if that 66 is out, I'm happy to go up with 68 just for myself. I mean, just to go up there, try to suit the needs of both. I feel happy with that.
I'm probably more for the 66 to 68, partly because we have a study coming up this next year to figure out where we're at. And also, I think if we do 70 this year, we know we can't go up a significant step next year, while the county might take a step up to catch us, and we might have a little bit more room to go up again at that point if we do 66 now, but that's just my thinking behind it.
Gotcha.
I think that we have made the police pay a priority since I've been on council, and that has been my goal as well. I'm for the 70, and I do think that there's room in the budget in other departments, as Councilmember Norman said, to go towards the police pay. So.
Mr. Ellis. Well, whenever I was interviewed to take this seat, the first question was about the police. And so if we can do the 70 and provide for the COLA, I say we do that.
I have a question. Obviously, we think as a council, there are certain areas where we can cut some of those funds or budgeted items. May we discuss some of those and see if we can look at that, come back to the table and see if we can work on that 70? Because clearly, I mean, I think council has put that 70 as a point of importance, and I agree. I mean, but if there's a way that we can tackle and see what we can do to get the best compromise here, is there a way that we could look into that?
Yes, and the last slide here is questions. If there are line items that you would like to look at or questions that you might have, staff is certainly here to answer those questions. So
Anyone want to start off? I've got a couple. Okay. Under expenditures for page 2, and I think Councilmember Kessel had just touched on this, under the comparable pay study for Department 11 City Council. I see that there's a 20,000 budgeted item there, and that's for the comparable pay study. Is that part 2 of the study that we had conducted back in '21?
yes, it is.
Okay. Well, is there any more additional part of the study that we'd have to go into later on?
I wasn't here when the first one was conducted. Gene, do you have any?
I think the goal would be at least every 4 years, if not 3 years, you would do one just to make sure that we're not losing ground.
Okay.
When you don't do one for 10 or 15 or 20 years, then you end up way behind.
Sure.
Yeah.
The other question that I had was regarding the city manager budget. So that would be page 4, under expenditures. We would be looking at Department 12 city manager. You know, I think this is one of those that we can look at. I mean, salaries and wages, seeing that, you know, we've dwindled down on this department at the moment. And so my question is can we use some of those funds to offset some of the cost? Let's just say if we have a department of 2, a city manager and an assistant, would we be able to go down on the salaries and wages?
Well, the way it had been operating, the second assistant city manager had been the director of utilities and oversaw all of that. Essentially, his pay increase to take on those additional duties, you know, was fairly small. He got bumped up a grade, several grades to that, but the total dollar cost change was pretty small. It was a few $1,000s because he now did both. If you eliminated that position, you know, and just have one assistant city manager and a manager, you're still going to need somebody to be over utilities.
Sure.
You know?
I think there would be an approximate $15,000 savings annually.
Yeah, that's something.
Well, wouldn't it be more than that? Because now we need a new utilities director, and you're not going, the past utilities director has tapped out. So when we bring somebody in, they're not going to start out at the top. So that, it's going to be more than $15,000 savings, right?
No, I don't think Doug was at the top.
Yeah, I
was he?
think he was. From what I
think
understand, that
he
was what
was.
was sold to
Was
us,
it? Okay.
or told to us.
Yeah, maybe he was.
I believe he was, but that, there could be a little more or a little less. But I would say 15,000 would be a conservative number.
Councilmember.
And then as well as the difference in pay of the new city manager,
Yeah.
as opposed to the one that had been here for 4 years and had, the salaries had gone up.
That, and also I think, excuse me, I would assume that this hasn't been accounted for the cut of the months that we would be displaced with that city manager. You know what I mean? Not having an actual city manager in place for those months that we would have for Grayson's salary. What is that? October, November, December, January, February, about 5 or 6 months potentially, we'd see a decrease on that salary item too, correct?
And
Yeah,
You would,
probably.
but it wouldn't be recurring.
Yeah, you'd probably
Right.
have a new manager by the first of the year,
Yes.
based on kind of where the timetable of Baker Tilly laid out.
Yes.
So you're talking 3 months anyway, but that's not a reoccurring savings in itself, because once you get a manager in there, the only savings you would have is what's the difference in Grayson's salary and the salary that you get.
It'd just
the
be
new person.
this
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
savings as
But
opposed to.
any savings you have, obviously, we can help. It reduces how much of the reserve that we're having to supplement, as we build up the revenue to get to the point where it's reoccurring to cover it. Because
Absolutely.
that's the goal we end up having to get to, is enough reoccurring revenue to meet that reoccurring expense.
Question, and this might come up later, finance director and assistant finance director. Is the assistant finance director included in the budget, or is it unfunded?
Yes.
It is.
I checked with Jackie earlier, it
It
is.
is. It's funded.
It is included, yes, sir.
I had another question on, well, actually, that tackles that. So on page 13, under Department 21, Accounting and Auditing, where we see the salary there, that would be for an assistant and director, correct?
Okay, I just got there. What's your question again?
Oh, sorry. On page 13, under Accounting and Auditing, we see salaries and wages at 397 to 807. That would be for an assistant and a director?
Yes.
Okay.
talking about
This.
the 400,000,
Yes, sir.
basically.
Yes, sir. So theoretically speaking, though, it could manage as a director, but we've allocated that as a,
Yeah, Grayson's idea in adding that, he knows I work 6 days a week, and the last few weeks I've worked half Sunday, as well, and I'm still behind, and he's thinking, and I'm thinking too, that an assistant, where we could shuffle part of that work away, and at the same time be preparing somebody who can step up, because we have no succession capability currently.
makes sense. And then the other question I had was on page 15, under Department 31 Police. I know that there's overtime there. There's significant overtime, and I get that. But if we were to increase our salaries and wages and with an increase of potential officers, would we actually see a decrease in the overtime? Now, I know obviously whenever you go to the FTO and you go through all of that, then they still don't count within that, I guess, threshold of having the amount of officers needed on duty until they're certified completely, correct? Yes, sir.
On that note, right now, we're 15 officers now. 6 of those officers are in training. So when those officers come out of training, that will be 6 more officers run Poker Street. That will reduce the amount of overtime that we're doing right now. And with the pay increase, and we don't lose any more officers, the overtime will go down.
Fantastic. So we're cautious on that number, obviously, but we've got it up just because, I mean, you've already got an expended
Yeah,
520.
Yeah, one or two incidents, you can blow that in a
Oh, yeah.
weekend. So,
Yes, I saw that and I said, oh my gosh, that's way over budget, so I get it. Travel expenses, why would we see an increase in that? Just out of curiosity.
Still in the PD budget?
Yes, sir, in the
Yeah,
PD budget, we're looking
yeah.
at travel
Most of
expenses.
that's training,
Okay,
yeah.
just gas and car, okay,
Yeah, a certain amount I think you can do online, but some things you have to go to.
gotcha.
The state keeps putting unfunded mandates for more and more training. So we try to do as much as we can locally, and we'll train other agencies to bring out instructors to Paris.
Go to the microphone. That way everyone can hear you. Sorry, Chief.
So on the training question, most all of that budget's training. And then we have a lot of mandated training that's coming out of the Uvalde incident that we have to do. We try to host most of that training that we can do here, but we do have to send our officers elsewhere. We try to pick places regionally, but most of that cost is training new officers, sending them to the academy, because we pay for their travel, we pay for their lodging, and if a lot of the academies that we're using are in the Metroplex area, so the per diem rates are higher. We double up their hotel rooms, we do everything we can to cut costs, but that's the majority of that training, or that cost.
And then I just had one more question. When we have that dispatch EMD software, is there, and I know that's probably a big thing for your dispatch, thank God, but my question is there going to be a recurring, like, subscription expense or anything like that in the future?
I'm not 100% sure, but no, I don't think so, because we have a real antiquated one right now that's really difficult to use. This one, we've sent somebody out that they've looked at it, they've tested it, our dispatch supervisor, and she loves it.
Fantastic.
I don't believe there's going to be a recurring fee on that, but I'll check.
I remember during my tour last year, that was a big thing, so
Yep.
I'm glad you guys are
Yes.
getting that.
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't have any other questions on PD budget, though. We're good. Anyone else? I will say on page 26 for lot mowing, under community development, I'm really happy to see an increase there. I know we get a lot of reports of needing mowing here, mowing there, and just being able to get around. I'm glad that we have some increase on budget for that. I think that about wraps up my questions so far for budget.
On the lawn mowing budget, in your opinion, do you think we need to raise that? Because that's one of the biggest complaints. And then one of the other things, that people are saying is that we had all those West Paris Town Hall meetings and said what we would do, and we got things done immediately, but now it feels like we're dropped. It's stopped. So do we need to add more there to get that done?
I don't know if Robert's in here. I'll answer since I don't see him. We could add to 100,000 on this. We are limited as to how often we can mow because we don't have unlimited funds in this particular line item. So I know that, I don't want to say yes or no, but I think increasing it to 70 is good. I don't think we need to go to 100,000.
Not to, raise it to, what are you saying, we don't have staff to do it? Is that what you're saying?
No, this is money we pay to our third-party mowers.
Your third-party mowers,
Yes,
okay.
Yes, so it's not a member of staff, it's a
right,
member of
right.
funding.
Right. So you don't think we need more mowing?
I think the turn that the city is making, the lots get turned over to the Tracy Pounders. They go to sale. It doesn't sell. It gets struck off. Goes into the housing infill program. So I think we're almost at a turning point where we will see more of those lots get put back on the tax rolls instead of being vacant. Now, hopefully, have a structure on it where we won't have to mow. So eventually, we'll see our funding plateau and hopefully decrease. So I think we're to that point where we may have to increase 1 or 2 more years, and then eventually we'll see it start decreasing.
I had that same, you bring up a really good question, because that's the same conversation I had last week.
Yeah.
And I know that Mr. Talley is working hard to try to pass that over to Mr. Pounders and say, hey, listen, let's get these tax roll going.
Yes.
Come on. So I mean, as long as we can keep that going, I think the momentum needs to be there. And, I mean, we hear it every day, multiple times a day, and then you guys hear it because we email you about it.
Right.
But it's becoming a really tough situation, so.
Well, it's
agree.
kind of like the police situation, and I've called multiple times, I've sent text messages. It's not only the lots, it's the areas that you have safety issues, like you can't see around corners because the grass is tall as the sign, in multiple areas. So, I'm good if we just had those things mowed down, whatever we need to do, because we've got a lot of those safety issues all over Paris. And it's not just West Paris. The places that I've called about is in Northeast Paris. So, and I know it should fall on the person who owns the lots, but it's not getting done, and I'd hate to see, accidents when we could have prevented it.
Agreed.
Anyone else?
Going to the city attorney's budget,
Yes, ma'am.
page 7, yes.
Evan?
You had talked about the $50,000 budgeted for the delinquent tax, and that could probably be backed out of your budget because it's not utilized.
Well,
Is that true?
What it is, and Gene can tell you the accounting reason behind it, but how Mr. Pounders is paid is he gets a certain percentage of all the delinquent tax revenue that he brings into the city. So this is not a line item that the legal department is actually paying out. It's a way to account for it. So if you back that out, that $50,000, that is a truer picture of what the legal department spends, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Because that line item is actually revenue generating.
Okay. And in your department, you have one paralegal along
Yes.
with you?
Yes.
And that's included in the salaries
Yes.
and wages? Okay. And then for contracting work, there's $60,000 allocated. Do we always use that whole 60,000?
We do not always use that whole 60,000. Part of that, the smaller portion of that goes to my contract prosecutor down at the municipal court. I actually took 10,000 off of that item this year for this year's coming budget. It just kind of depends on who sues us and for what. If we were to get a takings claim, an allegation that we unconstitutionally took somebody's property, that is a claim that is not covered by the TML insurance risk pool. So we have to hire somebody to do that, and we've had one of those in the last couple of years. Occasionally we will file suit against people, and then I've got the occasional issue that is a really specialized area of law, like telecommunications, that we are very much best served by getting somebody that specializes in that area.
Well, if I could see some of the line items, I'm kind of with Gary. I mean, if we could find a little bit more room in that budget, that we could help West Paris and see some of the cleanup efforts, see where those dollars go. I know if there's ability in this budget to go towards that, I'd like to see that.
Are you talking about that specific line item?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also the buildings and grounds, is that an assessment for your office in the whole,
That
in
he
this
puts
building?
that in there, yeah.
Okay.
What that normally pays for is repairs to air conditioning, or if we have problems with the structure of the building, you know, in that particular area. For example, there's usually, the city council gets charged for a lot of building maintenance because you have so much space. We've had to fight termites in the back and side and here in the front, you know,
Sure.
of space that's really essentially the city council. So it's that type of just ongoing maintenance that has to be done when you got a building that's over 100 years old.
And what I would actually prefer to do, rather than that particular line item, but I'll do what you want me to do, is I think I've got some room in my publications, because I think West will allow me to discontinue some of those black statutes that I keep up, but continue to keep up the ones that I regularly use. And there may be several thousands of dollars savings that I can do in that line item. I mean, I guess at the end of the year, Gene's gonna make everything come out in the wash anyway, but, you know, because I don't know what's going to arise during any given year, I like to be able to have that outside counsel line item. And like I say, I'd already reduced that by $10,000.
Thank you.
Are you talking about the media books?
Yeah.
Fine.
You said you cut off 10 grand from the contract services
From the
previous year. Gotcha. Anyone else?
I have a question. I don't
Yes,
know
sir.
if this is the right time. It opens up another can of worms, I guess. Who's, not that we're dealing with worms, but
Money.
who sets the salaries for all of the employees?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Who sets the salaries for all of the employees, city employees?
Who sets the salaries for the city employees? Well, that goes back to our pay study.
Yeah, we have a grade and step pay plan, you know, each, depending on the positions, on a different grade, and has a range of amounts that are paid depending on years of experience and so forth. The pay study, like we did, is how we normally alter that. If the consultant comes in and says, well, you're low here, high here, that gets adjusted on that basis. Because what we want to do is try to stay competitive with similar cities. But, I mean, so that's how it is. I mean, that's what the manager normally wants to follow. He wants to follow what's everybody else doing, you know, or at least be in the range of that. We don't have to be at the top. We don't want to be at the bottom, but if we can kind of stay in the middle, you know.
So the salaries for all of our city employees are comparable to other towns and fair?
Yes.
What is the review process like with department heads, and how you decide when people are promoted, and when is that information
Did you say on the revenue?
on the revenue side? I mean, we are gonna,
Yeah, on the revenue side, the city manager, this is how Grayson worked, and it's similar to what others. He would go in and look at trends for the last 4 or 5 years and make an estimate of what he thought the next year, what a reasonable amount for the next year. He'd have me do the same thing, and then we'd sit down and compare, you know, our numbers to see, you know, if we were both thinking along the same line. And that way, if one of us was off for one reason or another, or one of us knew something the other one didn't know, you know, we would catch it at that point. So that's normally how the revenues are estimated. It's done at the top. Now, we may get recommendations. For example, EMS may come to us one year and say it's been X number of years since we've gone up on our rates. You know, we need to do that to help our Medicare reimbursement process. You know, they keep us in tune with that kind of specialized information, but otherwise, usually the manager and the finance director will both do estimates.
So in this next budget study and comparable pay, if Paris is in alignment with other cities, will a COLA be necessary? I think that's my
Yeah.
fear, like,
Yeah.
just from any budget. I've asked this question to Rob, that like, are we on the expectation that we always need to have a COLA? I mean, inflation is everywhere. It's in everybody's, everybody's mindful of it and thinking of their pocketbook. But as a city, we just can't always guarantee that we will have enough support to approve one.
Yeah, well, it's looked at every year in this sense. Grayson would have the finance office calculate, if we give 2% COLAs to everybody but the PD, because we usually did them on a separate deal, everybody but PD and fire, which we'd usually give special look at. That number would be calculated. We would input it and see how that impacted the bottom line. He would determine whether or not that's something we could afford to do if we needed to do it. But in generally speaking, when you have inflation between 5 and 10%, if you don't do 2 or 3% a year, you're going to be so far behind. The next time that new comparable pay study comes out, you got some great big spike you're going to have to come up with to get the pay to where they are comparable again.
Okay.
And we've certainly lost ground for the non-civil service employees, in the last few years, even at 2%, because inflation's been way over that.
Sure.
Yeah.
These are really good questions.
They're really tough topic, so,
Well,
but I
and-
appreciate the explanations.
None of these are easy. I mean, we are tasked with this hard deal to pass this thing, and
Yeah.
every year after year, things change. We have different irons in the fire that we have to look at too from a citizen standpoint. And so I'm very fortunate, very grateful for the questions that are being asked today, because I don't think we've had such a dynamic process of asking these hard, tough hitting questions,
City's big business. It's a $60 million budget time you add in debt service and all of that
Yeah.
to it. And, that's the purpose why we try to give you a monthly financial report, so to keep you abreast of where we are at any given time. You need the information, to make the decisions that have to be made. So we don't mind asking the questions,
Yes, I guess this is to the city manager spot. So what determines reclassification of jobs? I think last week you came up with 2 jobs that you're talking about reclassifying. And it's a budget tight year. We're trying to work with police priority. The COLA's a big issue, a big topic. So, and I know, I'm pretty sure that more than one proposal come across your desk. So, how do we come up with reclassifying these jobs? If they've been that way for however many years, why do we want to reclassify them? And then how do we determine what positions get reclassified and what gets turned down?
Those 2 particular, I think there was 5 total that came across the desk in the capital request when Grayson was here, and those were the 2 that he had landed on, because those would be the most, I would say, most appropriate but most beneficial for providing additional services to parks and the
IT.
for IT. Yes, Brian Dabbs, yes.
So when you said additional services to parks, what do you mean?
As far as within the structure, as far as Michael, the Public Works Director, and I think he's here. Public Works Director handles an awful lot. He covers streets, CIP, water, sewer, and then this allows him to not just focus on all of those things, but he's got somebody else that can help out with some of the smaller jobs as well.
Yeah, and the other advantage of having an assistant public works director, when Michael's out for whatever reason, you got somebody in charge, somebody that the other areas can go to, when they need a decision. If Michael's gone, then everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and we always need to maintain some direction on that. And
Hey, man,
IT
did you
is something we're trying to build up
Yes.
in-house.
I
so-
totally agree with that.
And as part of succession planning as well, if MA were to leave, then we've got the next person that can step in.
I do,
No.
good, we need you to stay. I will state this, though. I did receive a few emails. I know this was late last night. I had received some emails from a few citizens in regards to the basketball courts at the Civic Center. And they had very politely asked that we look at the rims and the flooring. Now, obviously, the flooring is very expensive. I get that. And that may not be something that we can budget this year. But at least if we're able to look into something about replacing some of the rims and things like that, I think those are pretty minimal items.
And I did share that information with both MA and Bill O'Ranger today.
So on the rims and the nets, we can replace those as needed. That's not a ticket item there. The court there is concrete. It's not in bad shape. The worst thing that we have there usually is pigeons leaving a mess on the floor, and occasionally people going in there and doing burnouts on the concrete. We try to keep it clean as we can. Rob did send me one of the emails there. There was a question about hardwood floors. That won't work outside. I don't.
No.
Confused by that.
And I'm gonna reach out to the people too and make sure we're talking about the same place, because the Civic Center only has one basketball court. That's it. And they specified courts. I'm afraid they're talking about somewhere else, but I'm not sure because they went from hardwood floor to asphalt. Now, usually if I'm playing basketball outside, the concrete that's not cracked and broken is the best thing I've ever done it with. But
Right.
Yeah, well, I think they're talking about that court at the Civic Center, and I've been hearing it for several years, and I've heard it a lot lately. It's the concrete. It's like playing on ice out there. I don't know what the difference is because you can go to we call it 17th Street, Joan Mathis Park, totally different. It's still concrete, but it's totally different surface for some reason. But out there, it's like playing on ice. And
okay, so you're saying maybe it needs some texture to it?
something.
That's what it sounds
It
like.
We
needs
might be able to
something.
look into that then.
Yes.
We can
Yes,
most
'cause I'm
definitely take
surprised,
it.
I think my own grandson hurt his leg out there because I told him, don't go out there, it's a mess. But I think people are actually getting hurt. I'm surprised nobody's slipped and, hit their heads on that
No,
thing.
we don't want that. Like this is the
It's
first
really
thing hearing
bad.
about that.
Yeah, it's really
Uh,
bad.
So yeah, I'm most definitely looking at that. If it's just texture that needs to be out there, we can see about doing something with that.
A light
should be
texture, is
easier.
that, just off the top of your head, I mean, is that something that would be really expensive, or is that just something that you can
I
kind of
don't
gradually put on?
think so. I think, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, we could do like an epoxy coating or something for texture, correct?
The same thing like we do on the tennis courts, we can do.
Yeah, it's nothing it's not going to break the bank by no means. I think we can look into that.
That's awesome.
In fact, Bill owns a paintbrush.
There you go. I appreciate that. Sorry, I had brought that up just simply because it was something that was sent over to me pretty late last night. I was just reading through it and I said, wow, I got like 5 emails all at once. So I think it was a strategic attack, but I thought it was a good move. It was a good question.
I've heard it for several years now.
Something that, I think those are some easy wins we can get, for our citizens here, so. But does anyone on council have any other further questions or anything that you guys want to point out and kind of get some more information on at this time? And if not, we want to kind of give direction to staff on, do we want to meet again on Thursday? Or do we want to kind of go into just our regular meeting on Monday,
Was that Tuesday or Thursday?
Thursday? Yeah, the next meeting for our next budget workshop, if we were to decide to have another one, would be on Thursday at 5:30. But if we could decide today, if we feel like we're okay with the budget, we can be okay with that and then move over to the 26th as our regular meeting.
Yeah. I think I have an individual meeting.
We do. We have individual meetings coming up.
Yeah.
I would request one last tough question. I've been keeping notes. It looks like Rudy is 66 or 68, going back to police pay. Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor, you're at 68 or 70, and then the other three are at 70. So it's a half and half.
Well, I'll break it, 70.
Okay. Well, my following question then, that throws out the COLA for the retirees.
Does it?
No,
No,
we
it
can
doesn't.
still do it.
We can still do it. I'm sorry, but it
It's
makes it
just
much more
going to
difficult.
require 3 years of de minimis
Okay.
increases.
Well, my follow-up question would be, is that something that you also want to include, or do you just want the increase for police?
I think that's an important question, and I'm pretty hard on, yes, I would like that COLA, on a personal vote, just off of myself. I mean, I really think we need to get with the times, and I think COLA is necessary for our retirees, and I think it'll help. The emphasis really, in my opinion, is on benefits to the current staff and for the future. So anyone we tack on, like the process you showed me during our one-on-one on Friday, I thought that, and I hope you show the rest
I
of
will.
council, because that was so awesome to see whenever I'm shopping, if I'm a city employee, if I'm a police officer, or let's just say I'm looking to become a city manager, I can compare and contrast 3 different cities and see, hey, what am I placing against somewhere like Amarillo or somewhere like Tyler, where, what would I get if I were to apply and be considered for that job? Would I have that USC? Would I have this? Would I have the COLA that's in place with the current rate, or am I at, a half rate type of deal? That really helped to understand that, but I think we would get even better candidates to be able to tackle some of the issues we're facing, even in other departments. But I really would like to find a way to work a COLA in somehow, some way.
Yeah, I think in talking to some current officers, some of the retirees, some at other agencies, they all say that the COLA is a big draw. It would be a big recruiting tool, and also, retention.
So is there a way we could see an updated budget with COLA and the 70 for Thursday? Or,
Yeah, I think I could do that.
sorry, that's just,
Yeah, that's kind of what I tried to do in total numbers with the display was,
Gene, is that something we'd have to do on Thursday, or could we see an updated budget with a 68 or a 70 on Monday? Is that possible? Or we'd have to vote on it that night, correct?
yeah, we have to know that
On that
night.
night.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I
Thursday.
think I can get you revised numbers because we're not changing that many things.
Right.
And if you gave me 100 changes, that takes, quite a bit of work on this payroll. Part of the things we had to do in order for me to make these estimates is we can do in the software different versions at different pay levels. So I think I have most of the information already figured. I just have to pull in the right version of the budget. So I should have it no problem. Give you another printout like you've got now with the updated numbers.
Is that,
Yeah.
Can we continue to go around?
Yes, please.
Around the horn?
please? Mr. Ellis?
The COLA?
The
Is that
question
something
is-
that-
The
yes.
COLA, so the
Yeah.
question was, how is everyone sitting on the COLA? Would you want to see the COLA, whether it's 68 or 70? I mean, is a COLA kind of a definitive deal that we would want to see as a
No,
council?
I think we need to do the COLA.
So I agree with the COLA, of course, but, the police department's my focus.
Okay.
I'm the same. The police department is my focus. I would like to see both, but I was hoping there was room and there could be some more conservative numbers in some of the other budgets to help pull for both. But yes, the police department's my focus.
I'm in favor of the COLA, and that's the 66 or 68 is my lean, because that makes it easier to fund it.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
So it sounds like we're going to be meeting again on Thursday at 5:30. Sorry, Becky. I see it. But I think this is a good discussion that we're having, and I do appreciate everyone's time. I think if there's nothing else, then we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
I make motion.
We got a motion, and we got a second from Ms. Norman. We are adjourned.